What's up, agency owners? Jason Swenk here. I have an amazing episode. I have a repeat guest, a long-term friend, a long-term client, and mastermind member. And he's done something you all want to do. And it's not sell your agency, but I can promise you, you all want to get to this level. And Zach's going to share a lot with you. And I can't wait. Zach, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's great to see you, Jason.
Yeah, man. It's like we've never chatted before.
It's not like we haven't chatted for 10 years.
I know.
Every
Well,
week.
briefly tell us who you are and what did you used to do?
What did I used to do? Okay. So my name is Zach Williams. I'm the founder of an agency called Venveo. We're based out of Virginia. We focus primarily on the building products and construction space. Our team is about right over 65 people when we're recording this episode. And I used to be the CEO of my business. And beginning of December 2021, I exited. So I'm no longer the owner and I have not sold the business. I'm the founder and have really handed off the day-to-day running of the business to my executive team and to my CEO, a woman named Beth.
Yeah, I'm so excited for you. And if you guys want to know a little bit more about Zach, we'll link up our previous episodes that we've interviewed Zach on. But man, I am so thrilled to kind of see the progress from where you started to where you're at now, because so many people want to get there. So let's kind of jump into it. What's one of the most important things that you've learned over running the agency in order to get to the level of being really the chairman of your agency?
Well, I think first starting with understanding the clarity behind what is it that you want to achieve? What does success look like? I think it's actually very difficult for people in general to define success. And so for me, over the last few years, I've really seen where I thrive as an individual and how my organization can support and help our clients the best. And so for me, I saw that the best opportunity for me to thrive, for me to be successful, for my team to be successful, was to make that transition. And so I think in making this transition, the biggest thing was understanding the necessity behind why I made the call to go down this path. I think a lot of, and we were talking about this before we started recording, Jason, but a lot of agency owners, they get into the business because they love the work, they build their business, and then they hate the work, right? They hate it. And that was never me. Like I've always ascribed to building something I loved, but I saw, and you know this, like there are sweet spots that you play in as an individual. And I was seeing that my natural tendencies as a person in where I play and bring the highest and best value is actually starting to be counterproductive at the thing that the company was trying to create and do as an organization. So I don't know if I'm answering your question here or not, but that was what kind of led me down that path, is really defining clarity for what was the goal of the business, what's the goal of my team, and that was my personal goal as an individual.
What was life like before really gaining that clarity of where you wanted to take the agency?
So before I knew I wanted to make the transition, is that right?
Exactly.
I was very focused on and still like very focused on growth and getting the business to a place where it was self-sustaining and growing and bringing the value that we knew that was possible to our market and to our team. And so day to day, it was like it's a ton of work, and I still work a lot. Like people are like, "Oh, you don't work anymore." Like, no, I work a ton. Ask my wife. I just work on different things. But for me, I think you are in this position where um, you feel like if you don't have that clarity, you don't really know what you're aiming for outside of like EBITDA. And that's okay. Like some people, that's where they live. But for me, I always knew I wanted to create an organization that could grow beyond me. So like I always felt like I knew I wanted that. But then when I really put the line in the sand and said, this is where we're going, it put even more emphasis on how we structured the organization, the people that we hired, the clients that we brought on, everything. So I think I don't know if I can really if I'm doing a good job. Maybe you answer that for me, Jason, because you're through
Well,
it. you know,
no, I think you answered it, but
yeah.
let's talk about what are the key positions that allowed you to get to here, and what were the titles, Because a lot of
Okay.
people are like, all right, Zach and Jason, I I'd like to get to that level where I can
Mhm.
pick and choose and do what I want and have someone leading, the agency. But what is the steps I need to do now that I have clarity of where to go? What would be like your first step, second step? Is that key hires? What is it?
Okay. Yeah. I think, number one, and you talk about this a lot, but picking your niche is probably one of your biggest, most important things. Is that can be niching down in a vertical, that can be niching in a horizontal, it can be doing both. But step one is really understanding who are you targeting, what's the value bringing them, and then how are you going after them. So my business really struggled for a number of years. We've been in business since '07, and we didn't really start growing until like 2015, 2016. And so think about that for context. It was like we were like 4 or 5 people for longer than we've been, any other size. And that was really, really difficult for me and my ego and my psyche, but I wouldn't trade it because you just learned so much. But once we understood who we were targeting, then that allowed us to say, okay, how do I get better at sales and go after them? Like our business didn't grow. It's funny. It's like our business didn't grow until I started to sell better. Like I remember, Jason, I don't know if you remember this. There was a time you and I were hanging out. I was in your car with you and I had a prospect on the call and I had him on speakerphone. And I didn't know. It's funny. Like now it's so funny. It's like I didn't know how to sell. I knew how to do great work. I knew how to help people. And I don't know if you remember this. Like I had him on speakerphone, and like I would say something, and you'd be like, "All right, mute it." And so I'd mute, and you're like, now say this, and I would say it, and then you're like, now say this,
Yeah.
and it's. I mean, I felt like you were Geppetto and I was Pinocchio in that moment, but it was like really true. Like I needed someone to kind of coach me through that, and then after that moment, it was like selling became very easy for me. Um, so I feel like, and this is I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but I've always felt like sales doesn't solve all problems. Sales creates all the right problems. And so,
Exactly. Yeah.
go ahead.
No, I want you to tell the story because the story I thought you were going to tell
Mhm.
was the night you sent me a text landing your
Uh-huh.
biggest deal.
Oh yeah, I did. I sent you a huge deal.
And I was like,
Um,
wow, that's incredible.
yeah. So that deal up to that point, like we were struggling for years. And Jason, we had just started working together and just started to implement some of the things that we were talking about, or that you really coached me on. But we went and pitched a client, positioned really well, went after it, and like basically landed the deal. We're competing against nobody else. And it turned out to be phenomenal. I remember texting you and like, dude, we just landed this in like a matter of weeks. Like, thank you so much, or something like that. I can't remember what it was, but it was because we focused a lot on the niche. We focused on content around it. We went after sales and went after aggressively. Once we started to see that pipeline was so big and like we couldn't like handle it, that's when we started to build into infrastructure and operations. Like this is one thing I got wrong very early on, is like, oh, like let's fix operations first and then we'll organizational grow. Like no, like you need to have like, I think that the thing I always tell my team is like opportunity breeds confidence. Like the more opportunity you have in your pipeline, the more confident you'll be in the decisions you make, because if you mess up, it's not a big deal because you've got a pipeline there. So we started to grow in sales. Then I hired a director of operations who's now our COO, CFO, a guy named Jeff. And I had another counterpart, a woman named Beth, who's now my CEO, who's really oversaw our quality and strategy for our clients. And we just grew, 20-30% year over year to the point where you are right now.
Yeah, the one thing I'm glad you pointed out was getting those opportunities rather than trying to make it perfect and then get the opportunities. Because I always find that agencies are not charging enough. And they're not charging
Mhm.
enough because they don't have enough opportunities. They don't have the right opportunities because they haven't picked the niche or they don't have that clarity. And it just steamwall, it kind of just waterfall effect, based on the issues going on. And when you can charge enough, that just means you can hire the right people in order to
True.
lead or follow your vision and then make decisions. Like, and you were really, really good at, I mean, you still are, about letting people make decisions for themselves.
Mhm.
Were you just good at that? Or did you learn that over time or?
You mean like my team making their own decisions? Is that what you're
Correct.
saying?
Because there's so many owners listening that they go, I could never give control. Like I'm thinking of someone in the last experience, and she literally was like, my team has been with me for 15 years. I love them to death, but she would never trust them. And then she's finally trusted them and she's crushing it. And she's able to take off as much time as she wants.
Yeah, I think that is. I mean, for me, I feel like I've always tried to do that, and I think it's a good thing because it will actually push people out of the organization that don't want to do that. Like I've always prescribed the idea like you can't really grow unless you know give people the autonomy. And so it's very infectious to people who like meet that psyche criteria, and then it really pushes people out if they don't like it. Like if you like being like in a box like this right here, like it doesn't work. But I've always tried to do that, and I feel like what it does is it gets people not only more invested, but it lets people know like, hey, if you're gonna mess up, like I still got your back. And like that's really hard. That's easy to communicate. That's hard to really intrinsically instill in an organization. And so we as an organization at Venveo really tried to bring risk into the group. Like I've always felt like the amount of risk that somebody is willing to take is the single greatest indicator of the health of an organization. Because if your team doesn't think that they can take risk, then that's an issue on you as a leader. You might tell them to take risk, but deep down they don't feel like they can because of something you've done or something you haven't done, right?
Yeah, you've trained your team, right? You got to
Mhm.
kind of think back at if you tell your team to take risks, but the one time they took a risk and you scolded them,
Yep.
well, they're not going to take a risk again because you scolded them rather than saying, "Dude, that was awesome you took that risk. It didn't work out. let's let's not do that one again." But
Well, yeah, I tell people, like, well, at least when I was CEO, I used to tell people on their first day, I say, hey, I want you to know that you're going to make a colossal mistake, like you will, and I invite you to do it. And I want you to know that I'm going to put it on my back. I'm going to own it for you. And like that is like a very empowering thing to people, and it creates a lot of trust. And it's not just lip service. We really do mean it. And so it's hard because at times you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I let that person do that. But if they're good people, they'll stick around because they know that you really care about them. You know?
what let's switch focus a little bit, just a little bit,
Okay.
and talk about what was the process to get Beth ready to be the CEO, like, and to get the team ready to follow her. I mean, she was already a leader in the organization, but what was that process? Because I know that process was months in the making, if not
Hmm.
longer. So
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's funny. It's like people are always like, "Hey, how did you find?" They meet Beth, and like Beth is so talented. Like we had our all hands meeting last week. Like the entire company comes in and goes to this meeting, and I asked somebody on the team. I was like, "Hey, what do you think of the meeting?" And they're like, "Oh my gosh, Beth is just so engaging and da 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 da." And I was like, "No one's ever said I was so engaging." Like,
I remember you used to tell me stuff like that.
like, um, but Beth and I worked together for a really long time, and so there's a lot of historical trust, and so finding that person, like, you can definitely go outside your organization. For me, it was a no brainer to go inside the organization, just because of the culture fit and her rapport on our team, rapport with our clients, and so that for me was a no brainer. But the actual transition of how do we get things ready, I mean, I mapped out a pretty good plan saying, hey, what are the things that I'm currently involved in day to day that I have to be out of? Like, that's probably the first place I would start, is figuring out where am I putting my time and energy, that if I didn't put time and energy here, something would fail or break. And so like that for me was like probably the easiest indicator to go, okay, we either we need to hire people that can do that, or B, I need to delegate responsibility to people that are ready for it. And so we just systematically over time did that. And what we saw is not only was that starting to free up my time, but it allowed me to begin to go, okay, well, how do I want to position Beth and the other people, the other leaders in the organization for that transition? So when I announced it, it was like a lot of people, honestly, like I have some people I really know well in the organization. They're like, I think sad to a lot of people, they were sad, but a lot of people are like, oh, of course. Like, okay, cool. And you're like, no, I'm leaving. Like, I'm leaving this position. I'm not leaving the organization, but I'm like, I'm not in this position anymore. And they're like, okay. Like a lot of people, they were more attached to her because of how we positioned her through that transition. and we
Yep.
position our executive team.
And what is your position like now? Like, what is so if someone's aspiring to have a CEO come in, what should their position be like now?
So I think this depends on the individual. My role to day right now is like I'm focused on really just two things for the business. Number one, I'm still involved in our marketing. Like tomorrow, I'm going to speak at an event, and I'll always continue to do that because I enjoy it. And that means our podcast and helping with our marketing. But the other part of what I'm doing, and this is where my sweet spot is, and where my highest and best use is finding new things that we can spearhead and build that bring greater value to our clients. That thus helps us build our moat and helps us be better and be
Yeah.
bigger in our industry. And so, like for me, I'm very much, I know familiar, if you remember Zero to One, Jason, you heard of Zero to One, like that book, Peter
Hmm.
Thiel? Yeah, it's a great book. I play really well in Zero to One. It's like, oh, let's get off the ground and then like, let's hand it off. Like I remember talking to you,
We're the
like,
same way.
yeah, same way. Well, it's like 2016. Like I got Venveo profitable. I think I even called you. I was like, I got Venveo profitable. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And you and my wife were both like, "You idiot, go get back to work." Um, and
Yeah, I
that's
think
not
you were like right in the green too. Like I'm like,
yeah,
it
yeah, like
wasn't
we had
a ton. It was just
no,
like you're in the
like a week.
green.
It wasn't like how we make payroll. No, but like I love the business, but it's like I want to find things that I can build and grow. And so that's where I'm really excited is like, how can I create other things that I can then hand to my team to help them be more successful with our clients and help our clients be more successful. And so like that's what I'm focused on. Some people I know are like, I don't want to work in the business at all anymore. I just want to be on a boat all day or whatever. And like that's not me. Like I I think you and I are talking about this, but like I don't want to sell the business because I love the people I work with. Like my wife was like, "Oh, you don't want to sell. Like you love this guy and this person and that person, like you would be miserable. And like, I can't be married to you if you're miserable. Like, you know,
Wives are very smart like that.
they really are. They really are. Um, so does that answer your question?
Yeah, perfectly.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you mentioned kind of the selling. I have a thing when someone should sell. I think there's really only two reasons someone should sell. Well,
What are they?
maybe three. One, you need the money, which is perfectly
Okay.
fine. And there's no right or wrong answer. Two, you don't like the business anymore. Or three, you felt like you've reached your max and you want someone else's help,
Bingo. Yeah.
right?
I think
Like,
you're absolutely right. Like, I think, and for me, like, I don't want to sell at all. Like, I want to continue to grow the business because I think we barely reached our potential. But you see a lot of agency owners, like a lot of people I talk to, they like hate their job. And like that's why they want to sell. They're like, it's like the same reason like you never want to hire somebody who's running from something is the same reason why CEOs shouldn't sell their business because they hate it.
well, and there's options. Like, if you honestly hate the business, like literally you should make a list of all the things that you hate and then hire for that. Like, it's literally, and be
Why
resourceful. Like, why
why would I do
not?
that?
Like,
That's too logical. That's no, I can't do that. That's too logical.
I know my partners at Republics get mad at me a lot of times. I was telling you kind of the pre-show, I was like,
Uh-huh.
I talk a lot of people out that want to sell to us. I'm like,
But that's good though. But that's good, like because that means they're gonna come back to you, they're gonna trust you, you know?
Exactly.
Good.
Well, I always promised myself after I was kind of screwed in part of certain deals when I sold for the first time. I still did well, but
Yeah.
there's still lots I left on the table. I was like, I will always make a decision on what's right for someone rather than what's right for me. Like, because a lot of times, like, if I can buy someone, well, I'll make money on that.
Mhm.
And a lot of
It's
times
true.
you have to kind of take the money equation out and then figure that out. But like, it's funny. I'm thinking of one interview, and we'll link it up with Roy at Noodle Wave. He came to me 2 years prior, and I was like, "Hey, you're not ready yet, but you need to do this, this, and this." And then a couple months ago, we just bought their agency, and he's thrilled, and
That's
we're
cool.
thrilled. So it all comes back, right?
Yeah. That's really cool. I love that.
And I think the other option that I find when when agency owners want to scale faster, they think I need to sell so someone can tell me what to do. And
Huh.
that is one. Or
Yeah.
you could look for and form a group of really smart people that have been there before that you can tap on, that can see the things you might not be able to see. How did that help you, moving, the agency to where you wanted to?
It's a good question. So I know you've got your mastermind, Jason, which was incredibly helpful for us. I remember even in transitioning Beth, like I would bring Beth into the conversation and then her and I would talk after the mastermind meetings. Like, hey, what do you think of this person's scenario? What do you think of that problem? And so that's and like the amount of time you spend there, like it's the value you get is exponential because you can have good context and you can know what you need to do in your business, but there's something to be said about other people who are A, going through that same problem and that validates like, hey, I'm not alone. Or B, they've done it and you're like, shoot, I need to do it. Like you need to have somebody like, hey, like Jason, I need you to literally tell me what to say on this call so I don't mess it up, you know? And like I think about some of my closest friends have come through the mastermind, like buddies who are other agency owners who like will just call me up and be like, hey, I'm running into this problem. Can you help me? Or vice versa. And like that is like, I mean, gosh, like, and Jason, on a side note, like the impact you've had on people like me and in your masterminds, like incredible, like absolutely incredible. Because, if you think about not only the monetary benefit, but like the personal impact that it has, like to be able to be in my position to do that is just like, I don't know, incredible. I was joke with you. I'm like your number one testimony, like testimonial.
You
I,
are.
I am. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Because
you've
of that.
achieved what everyone wants.
Mhm. Yeah.
I mean, and
So,
I'm like I told you, I was so happy, just to see everything and just be a part of the small journey of,
mhm.
what you guys have been able to accomplish. So it's
I mean,
crazy.
do you remember when I called you? Gosh, we weren't making any money, and it was like a stretch for us to work with you. I was like, Jason, I don't know if I make payroll. Like, I think I'm gonna have to get a loan from my parents.
Yep.
And like that was like my lowest low in that moment. And you're like, yeah, like so what? What's the big deal?
Yeah.
And
It's
like
temporary.
it's temporary.
I literally remember I was at my house in Georgia on the back porch, and it
Uh,
was summertime, and I was
uh,
just walking around talking to you, and you were so freaked out. And I was like, calm the roll. I was
yeah,
like,
like
just,
like it's not a big deal. Like, but that's the thing. Like you think like there's no one else that has ever dealt with this. And like that's why the mastermind is so great, is because like I remember walking out of one with Beth and it was like, I was like, hey, what'd you get from that? She's like, we're not crazy. She's
yeah,
like, we're
with
not, we're, we're not, we're not,
everyone's
we're not,
crazy with us.
everyone's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's great, like, I mean, just some of the relationships you build are, I mean, they're lifelong friendships,
Yeah. Well,
regardless if,
and you guys showed up all the time and participated. There's so many people that just think, and other, they join certain things and they just go, well, as long as I invest in it,
oh, well, you got to
I'll
do
get
the work.
results. I'm like,
You,
hey,
you
you got
got,
to
you
show
got to do
up.
the
You got to
work.
do this.
You got to do the work. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
there's
why I like
no
your
easy.
your structure too. And I don't know if you talk about this very much with people, but your structure of like, hey, we're gonna have goals for these 90 days. You're gonna tell everybody those things. And if you don't do it,
We're going to
we're gonna
call
all
you on
give
your
you a raise.
shit.
We're gonna call you out. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's important. Well, this has all been amazing, Zach. Is there anything, if you had to do everything over again, is there
Mhm.
one thing that you would change?
I don't think that there's anything I'd change because of the things you learned. I think if you ask me like what would I do to to grow more quickly, like to be where I am today more quickly, I don't know if that's possible, but I think forcing yourself into those situations that feel most uncomfortable is typically the direction you need to go. So, for example, sales for me, like I like sales now, didn't like sales before, and so I would subconsciously avoid it. I'd subconsciously avoid the difficult things, but those are oftentimes the things you have to do. Um, so I'd probably do that more. And I think I would have grown more quickly. But I think it building this kind of business isn't easy, but it's simple. It's like, hey, you got to know, you got to clear down who you're helping, how you're helping them. You got to surround yourself with really great people, both in your organization, outside your organization, and you got to work really hard.
Yeah, and
I think
be
that's it.
consistent.
Be consistent. Yeah, it's like consistency over time. Like do that. I mean, that's true for anything. Like consistency over time, you're going to be successful.
Yeah, yeah, and be resourceful.
Yep.
I see too many people giving up too quick, but
Yep.
maybe that wasn't right for them.
No.
But we'll
I'm
see. But
listening to this I'm listening to this really good podcast right now about Thomas Edison. And I don't know if you're familiar with Thomas Edison, all like
oh yeah,
his story. Yeah.
how it took a.
So he
Isn't he the one that spent he knows 1,000 ways how not to invent a light bulb?
yeah, so he's I mean, it's there's a couple really great books on him, but like he's got a bunch of inventions that are like that. Like he's not like a Harvard trained professor or a scientist. He's like like they keep talking about him like as a tinkerer, and like he would just like bludgeon an idea to death, and like they talk about him trying to solve like this stenograph or whatever it's called, like that. It's like basically the record player, like
Don't
trying
try
to
to
solve.
have me
I'm not gonna try.
pronounce that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm butchering it. I'm butchering it. But like they talk about him like trying to solve these problems, literally thinking of every single material he could potentially use, like even like fish fat, like and fish guts. Like he even tried stuff like that. Like he's literally trying everything, but he's just relentless. And so I
He
think
had
that's
to
true.
have like ADHD or some kind of to
Oh,
have
I
that
think
much focus on that, like those kind of things.
Oh yeah, they talk about him like as if he's like he's not almost, but like was compulsive, like obsessive compulsive.
Yeah.
Like
Oh yeah. Like
couldn't
Elon
couldn't let go of an
Musk.
idea. Yes, like that. Like he couldn't let go of an idea and would work for days, not eat, not sleep on something.
And we need those people because I
We
mean,
do.
I'd lose interest in like 2 minutes. I'm like,
Yep.
I'll go do something else. But awesome. Tell us about your Instagram handle because that's pretty
Oh
unique,
yeah.
and I find it fascinating. I watch them all. Um, Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I'm working on a side project. It's called The Untold. Basically, what it is it's really obscure stories about people and businesses you've heard of, and intertwined in that is takeaways for your business. So you can literally go to YouTube or Instagram, whatever it is, slash find the untold, or you can check us out at theuntold.com. It's just honestly really cool stories about business people like that. You're like, wow, I didn't know that. Like, so we're doing one right now on the fall of Yahoo and like all the mistakes that they've made. Really, really interesting. And we're going to do one on Southwest Airlines, like how they basically wrecked an industry like back in the 80s. Like people don't know about it. So if you like Malcolm Gladwell and you like business, that's what we're aiming for.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I see them all the time. I'm like, that's really cool. And guys and gals, when you go there, they're really engaging too. Like take a lot of points from what Zach does in the marketing, not from there, but also in the agency and what he does on the podcast, because he does a really good job at branding the agency. And he's also a funny thing that most people probably don't know about you outside of the people that work with you. He's a
Yeah.
font Nazi.
Oh,
If you
I would
use
say
like a regular, like if you use
I'm a
a
font
crappy
connoisseur.
normal font, he'll crush you.
I had my lead developer recently. He slacked me and he was like, because I worked on this one website for one of our clients. Just kind of gave some input. And he was like, hey, our COO slash CFO is gonna have a heart attack on the amount of money you spent on these web fonts. And he showed me it was like $1,200 or something like that. I was like, oh, only $1,200. But
I
like,
should call
yeah.
Beth and get access to some of your team and like tell them like use Times Roman on everything.
Funny enough, like we had like a company summit back last year, and like that was like the
That was the
undercurrent,
font.
like it was like make fun of Zach by everyone using Times New Roman.
I told you, like inside anybody outside your company,
Uh-huh.
they probably wouldn't know you're a font Nazi.
No, I don't call it that. I call it a font connoisseur, like a font. I'm like
No,
a font
you
friend.
have
No.
font issues. Like I'm just gonna call it a font issue.
Well, the reason why I care so much about it is because words tell you something, fonts make you feel something.
Oh, yeah. We'll end it on that one. That was good. We'll make you look good on that one.
I like it.
Zach, what's the agency website people can go and check you guys out too?
Yeah, check it out at venveo.com. That's venveo.com. You can also search me on Jason Swenk's website. I think I've been there one or two times.
A couple.
Yeah. Couple.
He's
Couple.
all
I'm
over.
on I'm on your I'm on I think your is it your playbook page? I just saw myself.
Yes, you're on the playbook
Yes.
page. And his
I was having a
fonts,
good
all our fonts on jasonswank.com are Zach fonts.
hey, and you pay for them yearly. You send me
I
a note every
know.
year. You're like, hey, do I have to pay for these?
Yes. And I can't tell the difference between the regular free fonts, but I just think it's funny.
You do it for me. You do
I
it for
do it
me.
for you. I'm like,
Yes.
hopefully they send him a kicker.
They don't. They don't.
Well, darn it. So, well, awesome. Well, thanks so much, Zach, for coming on the show. And if you guys enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe, make sure you comment. It was a lot of fun. And if you guys want to be an agency mastermind that really puts the best people in the room and wants to connect you and help you scale faster, I'd love for all of you to go to digitalagencyelite.com and fill out an application. And if we feel you're right, we'll chat. And if we don't, we'll tell you. And until next time, have a swank day.